We have Catherine Afanasenko, Afanasenko, and David Wikström. Why am I introducing you when I can't even pronounce your name? But anyway, well, we're here to learn about space food, and here we go. I hope you're all saved a little room from lunch.
Hey everyone, we're glad to see you all here today, and we're very pleased to see you here. In today's topic is the history of development of the best food that are in space right now, and it's made by Russia. We encourage you to ask any questions after our presentation, so please take notes. So let's start with the history.
All right. A long time ago in a country far, far away, we have, next slide. So Yuri Gagarin was our first cosmonaut. And he went up to space with food from the Russian space industry. And what they sent with him was this Russian quark that's called tvorog, as you can see up there, and it was stuffed with chocolate. He was only up there for 108 minutes, so he needed something that can be easily consumed and safely at the same time. So the difference between ordinary food and supplementary food is that ordinary food is here on Earth, and we eat it every day, pretty much. Supplementary food is what we need in space, just because we consume more calories and we need richer food with more nutrition. So we found that psychologically it's important for us to have what is it called? Food that we can see in space, colors that we can see, texture, things like that. Otherwise, when you're in isolation, you kind of go mad. So we've put food up in space, and at the moment, it's going to look like this when it goes up into space. That's the real stuff. We kind of just took 20 off the back of the wagon.
And I would just to add a little bit that at first, that at first they launched tubes like this for space, and they were taken from pilots because at that time it was the only one thing that can be consumed easily because you don't have enough time, to use fork or spoon. So you need something that will be easier to consume. And right now, as my colleague already said, we're using freeze-dried food in the space and cans. Because the weight should be light. Because it's very, very important, so it will weigh a lot. Every kilo weighs so much in the space, and it's even more expensive than gold right here. You can continue.
So we have what happened just a few years ago. The president of Russia, Vladimir Putin, allowed free enterprise for their space program, specifically for the food. So these two companies, as you can see up here, these guys, the Public Scientific Research Institution, they're the ones that really make all the recipes. They're the ones that really invent everything. It's all special and secret, and we don't know. These guys, they just opened, I believe, in the late 80s, and they are creating how to get it up there, or the components of the space food.
Yeah, they checking food. They're trying to make the recipe full of rich microelements that needed a person in a space, because they need to perform on a high level, and they need to have food that will be rich with microelements. And so...
Right, and so ever since the beginning of space food, ever since we started sending cosmonauts and astronauts up into space, Russia has led the way. We have the best tasting food. Russians send 80% supplementary food and 20% ordinary food. You know, when you're watching the NASA videos and you see how they're trying, they have a Snickers bar or something like that. They're trying ordinary foods just so they don't go mad up there. Whereas they also send their own special foods. Of course, they need that. How they check that is they simply, you know, take samples from their body and they test them and they send the results down to Russia, and then they figure out what the individual needs specifically to live longer, because everyone's different. Everyone's body composition is different.
All right, so we now will move to the next part, and we will tell you a little bit about our company, Space Food Laboratory. As my colleague already said, before 2014, everything concerning about the space was top secret, and only government had access to it. But after Putin said that everything that we have in space industry can be now used in order to improve the relationships and to show it to the people we can use, our company is the first commercial partner that aiming at popularization and proliferation of destinations of the space industry. And our main mission is to give people the opportunity to try this extraordinary food that are made only for astronauts to try. And people can use this food in different fields, like for urgent situations and emergency. Also, this is a product of exceptional quality because, you know, for astronauts, everything should be considered a lot of times, so it will be very useful for them. So space food is doesn't contain any extra or artificial ingredients. It's produced on the basis of natural components. So it's very physiologically beneficial. It's balanced. It have a lot of nutrition, and it's easy digestible by the body. Even in a zero gravity or here on Earth, it doesn't matter. And of course you can use it in the long terms because they're using a special technologies to preserve the food. As I already mentioned, the areas of applications is very wide. You can use it as a special catering, tourism, where you can cook for yourself and you can just take this and have a good meal. Also for special expeditions, for example, our friends, unfortunately we doesn't have a photo right now, but we send it our food as a meals for expeditions to their, yeah, it's in Arctica, yes, right. And they use it and they loved it a lot, so we're very happy about that. And also it can be used as a quick nutritional meal between activities. So we offering, the main range is very different, very large, and consists of a dozen of names, from soups and meat meals to the desserts as a cottage cheese. And one interesting fact that cottage cheese in space is like gold. Yeah? Yeah,
so I can explain further. This cottage cheese that we send up, which you can come and try when we ask your questions, is a quark, and it's very high in calcium and potassium. And as we all know, in space, the number one problem is loss of bone, the bone loss. Therefore, when you're up there in space, they say that the Russian tvorog is like gold, because the other astronauts from the other countries will trade their best foods for that just because they understand that this is better for their longevity, especially in space.
Yeah. So, we as a company collaborate with the government enterprises. We already mentioned them, Public Scientific Research Institution of Food Concentrate Industry and Special Food Technology, a very long name, but, well, government likes the long names. And so it's the main inventor of space recipes with a rich experience. And it was founded in 1950 and still works. The same people, same recipes, and they're using it because they spent so much time to invent it that it's very high quality and still using it. And the second one is Federal State Unitary Enterprise, the Birolova Experimental Plant. Is the only one factory that actually taking all these recipes and making them in real life. And for example, this food is from the same factory so it's like the same food for astronauts using. We're just taking, part. And so also want to say about the social and economical objectives about our space food laboratory. We're trying to implement these advanced technologies in everyday life so people can use it. And also what is very important that we aiming at development of patriotism and education in primary, secondary, and special education institutions also. So now we will open a little bit the curtain for what we will do next as future technologies for space food. As you can see, this is a cryo vacuum sleep of fresh products. Yes, sleep, like a dream, because this product, they will, as a person that are going to sleep, when he waking up, he's the same person than when he went to sleep. So we decided to use this name for our new technology because the fruits and food will be the same after freezing. So we're using acoustic extra freezing technology with this cryo vacuum sleep. As you can see on the first picture, it's the cells of a fresh product. And they're not damaged, they're unique and...
Still intact, the walls, or the membranes haven't ruptured, as you can see.
Yeah. The second is what's happening with the food when you freeze drying it. So this is basically, can you show that please, the freeze-dried supplement? Yeah. So actually, that's what's happening with such kind of a food that astronauts using right now. The cells, after you're adding water there, they're damaging because when you was freezing them, the crystals of water, they came together, and so when they unfreezing, they're like tearing apart the cells. But if you will use with a vacuum cryo sleep, yeah, and
our special technology that we developed.
Yes, with acoustic technology, it can it helps to stay. The cells will stay far from each other because you're using the sound, and they won't stick together. So when you're freezing them and using at the same time these sound waves, they are staying more like, I don't know,
intact.
Together, yes. So, and also we are looking forward for different collaboration with top chefs, and we will try to preserve their food that they will make for astronauts. So they will be able to have some unique food out there in space because it's very important for their brain activity. Hence, the tongue is connected to our brain. And when you have different tastes, your brain works more faster. And also, it would be, I think, a great idea because people would be able to try different things. So, I guess that's all for today. Thank you for your attention, and we're ready to answer to all of your questions. And yeah.
So you're planning to use this acoustic news system for the expeditions to the Moon and Mars, like in future, or how do you see food of the future space colonies?
Thank you for your question. Yes, we are planning to implement this technology, and before sending it to Mars, we also want to see how astronauts will react on this food. I think it can be a food of future, or at least it's one step closer to that food. Because what you want is that preserve the food how it is here on Earth, there on space. So be closer to your home, natural habitat, yeah? And yeah, so we're thinking that we can use this in the future.
Hi. So aside from fiber, our bodies kind of tear the cells apart as we're digesting them anyway. So why does the intact cells in the freeze-dried food preserve nutritional value that we would tear down anyway eventually and digest? Thank you.
The problem is when you heat food, it'll lose vitamins. And when you freeze it and you bring it back, certain foods will not maintain when it comes back to normal temperature, it won't maintain the same amount of vitamins. So in the past, when we were sending up the food, specifically with Gregorian, he was losing a lot of nutrition. So in the 80s, they developed the freeze-dried method. And because of the freeze-dried method, they've been able to hold over 90% of the vitamins that are originally in the food that we're sending up. So we're getting double the nutrition, almost. Which is a large step from before in the 70s and the 60s and all. Did that answer your question properly? Thank you.
I got the next one here. It was very similar. So what happens to that nutritional value? Like, does it disappear? When you package it, I imagine that everything that was in the original food is still there in the package. So what exactly happens to it? The nutritional value that's lost, like how is it lost?
Excuse me, but was which food, freeze-dried? Or
Well, sure. So you described freeze-dried food, maintains a certain amount of nutritional value,
Yeah.
and the AEF a little bit more. So and when the breakdown of the cells happens and it loses nutritional value, as you said, what does that mean? Like, where does it go? Does it disappear into thin air, or?
Thank you for your question. It's very interesting. What's happening is that while you're bowling, as my colleague already mentioned, you're boiling out some microelements that are needed. And then so people decided, it's not good. We need more than 50%. And they invented the freeze-dried food. But still, because the water and this cells that are coming up together, when you're icing it, they're like freezing together. When you're adding water, they're tearing. And that is why you're not getting the whole cell. You're getting the part of it. So that's why they're using it, because the cell is not.
I have a good way to think about it. When you go to the store and you go to Whole Foods and you grab a smoothie, and they fresh squeeze that sucker for you. If you have it right then and there, very quickly, you'll be able to receive all the nutrients. But the longer it sits there, the more it breaks apart, and the less your body is already ready genetically and physically to absorb the nutrition naturally. So when you eat supplements like vitamins, there's a difference between the natural vitamin and the synthetic vitamin in the absorption. So in the same sense, when we freeze food, when we lose vitamins due to heating it back up. It's just because it's falling out of its natural order. So when you're eating it, it's like eating too much food. It's not going to all be absorbed.
And the temperature is going from like freeze, then 0 to higher again, because you're adding a hot water there, the boiled one. So it's like the food, it's shocking for food.
You mentioned the degradation of the food. In terms of long-term storage for going to Mars, the food would have to remain viable for at least 3 years, and if it's a backup plan, as long as 5 years. Can you describe how well this food, preserved this process, would retain its nutritional viability and taste over 3 to 5 years, and whether it needs to be kept cold during that time?
I don't believe it needs to be kept cold.
No, it's like this. It needs a regular temperature, and because it's already preserved. So.
And for how long will it last? It should remain good for, very long time. None of it's gone bad. The only problem is maybe taste will change, and consistency.
Yeah, but it won't. Maybe it will happen with cans. The taste can change a little bit. But for example, this is in vacuum, so nothing can get inside. It was already sterilized and so like clean area, and there's like nothing inside. It's preserved, so nothing will happen with this kind of a food. And this acoustic extra freezing with vacuum cryo sleep. The package will be the same, but inside will be a better preserved food. So basically, it's the same conception of a packaging and how it is inside.
Okay, so our time's up, and just want to let you guys know that on this side we have tvorog with apple puree, and on this side we have borscht. So if you really want to come up quickly and try some of the space food, come now as we're changing speakers.
And thank you very much.